see what was on top of it. She stretched herself up on tiptoe and peeped over the edge of the mushroom, and her eyes immediately met those of a large blue caterpillar that was sitting on the top with its arms folded, quietly smoking a long hookah and taking not the smallest notice of her or of anything else. This is a chapter named Advice from Caterpillar. The caterpillar and Alice looked at each other for some time in silence. At last, Caterpillar took the hookah out of its mouth and addressed her in languid, sleepy voice. "Who are you?" said the caterpillar. This was not an encouraging opening for a conversation. Alice replied rather shyly. I hardly know, sir. Just at present. At least I know who I was when I got up this morning, but I think I must have been changed several times since then." "What do you mean by that?" said the caterpillar tenderly. "Explain yourself." "I can't explain myself, I'm afraid, sir," said Alice, "because I'm not myself, you see." "I don't see," said the caterpillar. "I'm afraid I can't put it more clearly," Alice replied, very politely, "for I can't understand it myself to begin with. And being so many different sizes in a day is very confusing." "It isn't," said the "Well, perhaps you haven't found it so yet," said Alice, "but when you have the turn into chrysalis, you will someday. You know, and then after that into a butterfly. I should think you feel it a little queer, won't you?" "Not a bit," said the caterpillar. This is so exciting. "Well, perhaps your feeling may be different," said Alice. "All I know is it would feel very queer to me." "You," said the caterpillar contemptuously, "who are you?" which brought them back again to the beginning of conversation. Alice felt really irritated at the caterpillar making such a very short remarks, and she drew herself up and said very gravely, "I think you ought to tell me who you are first." "Why?" said the caterpillar. Here was another puzzling question, and as Alice could not think of any good reason, and the caterpillar seemed to be in a very unpleasant state of mind, she turned away. "Come back," the caterpillar called after her. "I've something important to say." This sounded promising. Certainly, Alice turned and came back again. "Keep your temper," said the caterpillar. "Is that all?" said Alice, swallowing down her answer as well as she could. "No," said the caterpillar. Alice thought she might as well wait, as she had nothing else to do, and perhaps after all it might tell her something worth hearing. For some minutes it puffed away without speaking, but at least it unfolded its arms, took the hookah out of its mouth again, and said, "So you shoes and I don't keep the same size for 10 minutes together. Can't remember what thing, said the caterpillar. Well, I've tried to say, oh, thought the little pussy bee had, but it came different, Alice replied in very melancholy voice. Repeat, you are old, Father William, said the caterpillar. Alice folded her hands and began. You are old, Father William, the young man said, and your hair has become very white, and yet your innocent stand on your head. Do you think at your age it is right? In my youth, Father William replied to his son, I'm feared it might injure the brain, but now that I'm perfectly sure I have known why, I do it again and again. You are old, said the youth, and mentioned before, and have grown the most uncomfortable fat. Yeah, you turn and back somersault in at the door. Pray, what is the reason of that? In my youth, said the sage, as he shook his grey locks, I kept all my limbs very supple by the use of this ointment. 1 shilling the box allowed me to sell you a couple. You are old, said the youth, and your jobs are too weak for anything other than shoot. Yet you finished the goose with the bones and took big prey. How did you manage to do it? In my youth, said his father, I took the love and argued his case with my wife, and then muscular strength which it came to my job. He lasted the rest of my life. You are old, said the youth. One would hardly suppose that your eyes was as steady as ever. Yet you balanced an eel on the end of your nose. What made you so awfully clever? I have answered 3 questions, and that is enough, said his father. Don't give yourself airs. Do you think I can listen all day to such stuff? Be off, or I'll kick you downstairs. That is not said right, the caterpillar. Not quite right, I'm afraid, said Alice. Definitely some of the words have got altered. It is wrong for beginning to the end, said the caterpillar decidedly, and there was silence for some minutes. The caterpillar was the first to speak. What size do you want to be? It asked. Oh, I'm not a particular as to size, Alice hastily replied. Only one. Doesn't like changing so often, you know. I don't know, said the caterpillar. Alice said something she had never been so much contradicted in her life before, and she felt that she was losing her temper. Are you content now? Said the caterpillar. Well, I should like to be a little larger, sir, if you wouldn't mind, said Alice. 3 inches is such a frigid height to be. It is very good height indeed, said the caterpillar angrily rearing. It is very good height indeed, said the caterpillar angrily rearing itself upright as it spoke. It was exactly 3 inches high. smoking again. This time Alice waited patiently until it chose to speak again. In a minute or two, the caterpillar took the hookah out of his mouth and yawned once or twice and shook itself. Then it got down off the mushroom and crawled away in the grass. Merrill remarking as it went, "On side will make you grow taller and the other side will make you grow shorter." One side or what? The other side of what? Thought Alice to herself. One, the mushroom side, the caterpillar used as if she had asked it aloud. And in another moment it was out of sight. Alice remained looking thoughtfully at the mushroom for a minute, trying to make out which were the two sides of it. And as it was perfectly round, she found it very difficult to question. However, at least she stretched her arms around it as far as they could go and broke off a bit of each with each hand. "And now which is which?" she said to herself, and nibbled a little of the right hand a bit to try the effect. The next moment she felt a violent blow underneath her chin. It had stuck her foot. She was a good deal frightened by this very sudden change, but she felt that there was no time to be lost, as she was shrinking rapidly, so she set to work at once to eat some of the other bit. Her chin was pressed so closely against her foot that there was hardly room to open her mouth, but she did it at least, and managed to swallow a morsel of the left-hand bit. Come, my head, free at last," said Alice in a tone of delight, which changed into alarm in another moment. When she found that her soldiers were nowhere to be found, as she could see when she looked down was an immense length of a neck, which seemed to rise like a stalk out of the sea of green leaves that lay far below her. "What can all the green stuff be?" said Alice, "and where have my shoulders to go to? And oh, my poor hands, how is it can't see you?" She was moving them about as she spoke, but no result seemed to follow, except a little shaking arm among the distant green leaves. There seemed to be no chance of getting her hands up to her head. She tried to get her head down to them, and was delighted to find that her neck would bend about easily in any direction, like a serpent. She had used succeeded in curving it down into a graceful zigzag, and was going to dive in among the leaves, which she found to be nothing but the tops of the trees under which she had been wandering, when a sharp hiss made her turn back in a hurry. A large pigeon had flown into her face and was beating her violently with its wings. "Serpent!" screamed the pigeon. "I'm not a serpent," said Alice indignantly. "Let me alone, serpent." "I saw again," repeated the pigeon, but in more subdued tone, and added with a kind of a sob, "I've tried every way and nothing seems to suit haven't the least idea but you're talking about, said Alice. I've tried the roots of trees, and I've tried banks, and tried edges. The pigeon went on without attending to her. But those serpents, there's no placing them. Alice was more and more puzzled, but she thought there was no use in saying anything more till the pigeon had finished, as if it wasn't trouble enough hatching the eggs. Said the pigeon, but I must be on the lookout for serpents night and day. Why? I haven't had a wink of sleep these 3 weeks. I'm very sorry you've been annoyed, said Alice, who was beginning to see its meaning. And I used at taking the highest tree in the wood, continued the pigeon, raising its voice to a shriek, and I was thinking I should. Thinking I should be 3 of them at least. They must need some wriggling now from the sky. Ugh, serpent. But I'm not a serpent, I tell you, said Alice. I'm well, what are you, said the pigeon. I can see you are trying to invent something. I'm a little girl, said Alice, rather doubtfully, as she remembered the number of chains she had gone through that day. Unlikely story indeed, said the pigeon, in a tone of the deepest contempt. I've seen a good many little girls in my time, but never one with such a neck as that. No, you are a serpent, and there's no use of denying it. I suppose you'll be telling me next that you have never tasted an egg. I have tasted an egg, certainly, said Alice, who was a very truthful child. But little girls eat eggs quite as much as serpents do, you know. I don't believe it, said the pigeon, but if they do, why then they're a kind of serpents. That's all I can say. This was such a new idea to Alice that was quite silent for a minute or two, which gave the pigeon the opportunity of adding, "You're looking for eggs. I know that well enough. And what does it matter to me whether you are a little girl or a serpent?" This is making me laugh. "It matters a good deal to me," said Alice hastily, "but I'm not looking for eggs, as it happens, and if I was, I shouldn't want yours. I'd like them raw." "Well, be up then," said the pigeon in a sulky tone, as it settled down again into its nest. Alice crashed down among the trees as well as she could, for the neck kept getting entangled among the branches, and every now and then she had to stop and untwist it. After a while she remembered that she still held the piece of mushroom in her hand, and she set to work very carefully, nibbling first at once and then at the other, and growing sometimes taller and sometimes shorter, until she had succeeded in bringing herself down to her usual height. It was so long since she has been anything near the right size that it felt quite strange at first, but she got used to it in a few minutes and began talking to herself as usual. "Come, there's half my plan done now. How puzzling all these changes are. I'm never sure what I'm going to be from one minute or another. However, I've got back to my right size. The in it about 4 feet high. Whoever lives there, thought Alice, will never do to come upon them this size, for why I should frighten them out of their wits. So she began nibbling at the right band bit again, and did not venture to be near the house till she had brought herself down to 9 inches high. The next chapter name is Pig and Paper. For a minute or two she stood looking at the house and wondering what to do next, when suddenly footman in livery came running out of the wood. She considered him to be footman because he was in livery. Otherwise, judging by his face only, she would have called him a fish, and rapped loudly at the door with his knuckles. It was opened. Another footman in livery with a round face and large eyes like a frog. And about footmen, Alice noticed her povered hair that curled all over their heads. She felt very curious to know what it was all about, and crept a little way out of the wood to listen. The fish footman began by producing from under his arm a great letter nearly as large as himself, and this he handed over the other, saying in a solemn tone, "For the Duchess, an invitation from the Queen to play croquet." The footman repeated in the same solemn tone, only changing the order of that word a little, from the Queen, an invitation for Duchess to play croquet. Then they both bowed low, and their chorus got entangled together. Alice laughed so much at this that she had to run back in the wood to leave fear of their hearing her. And when she next peeped out of the fish, footman was gone, and the other was sitting on the ground near the door, staring stupidly up into the sky. Alice went timidly up to the door and knocked. "There's no sort of use in knocking," said the footman, "and that for 2 reasons. First, because I'm on the same side of the door as you are. Secondly, because they are making such a noise inside. No one could possibly hear you. And certainly there was most extended noise going on within, and constant howling and sneezing, and every now and then great crash, as if a dish or kettle had been broken to pieces. Please," then said Alice, "oh, I'm going to get in. There might be some sense in your knocking." The footman went on without attending to her. "If we had the door between us, for instance, if you were inside, you might knock, and I could let you out, you know." He was looking up into the sky all of the time he was speaking, and this Alice thought decidedly uncivil. "But perhaps he can't help it," she said to herself. "His eyes are so very nearly at the top of his head, but at any rate he might answer questions. How am I get in?" she repeated aloud. "I shall sit here," the footman remarked, "till tomorrow." this moment the door and the house opened and the large plate came skimming out straight at the footman's head. It just grazed his nose and broke to pieces against one of the trees behind him. Or next day maybe, the footman continued in the same tone, exactly as if nothing bad happened. How am I to get in? Asked Alice again, in a louder tone. Are you to go get in at all? Said the footman. That's the first question, you know. It was no doubt only Alice did not like to be told so. It is really dreadful, she muttered to herself. The way all the creatures argue, it's enough to drive me crazy. The woodman seemed to think this a good opportunity for repeating his remark with variation. I shall sit here, she said, one and of for days and days. What am I to do? Said Alice. Anything you like, said the footman and began whistling. Oh, there's no use in talking to him, said Alice disrespectfully. He's perfectly idiotic. And she opened the door and went in. The door led right into the large kitchen, which was full of smoke from one end to other. The Duchess was sitting on a three-legged stool in at the middle nursing a baby. The cook was leaning over the fire stirring a large cauldron which seemed to be full of soup. There's generally too much pepper in that soup, Alice said to herself, as well as she could for sneezing. There was certainly too much of it in the air, even the Duchess. There was a sneeze occasionally, and as for the baby, it was sneezing and howling alternately without a moment pause. The only thing in the kitchen that did not sneeze were the cook and the large cat which was sitting on the hearth and grinning from ear to ear. Please, would you tell me, said Alice timidly, for she was not quite sure whether it was good manners for her to speak first, why your cat grins like that. It's just our cat, said the Duchess, and that's why pigeon, she said the last word with such sudden violence that Alice quite jumped, but she saw in another moment that it was addressed to the baby and not to her. So she took courage and went on again. I didn't know that just her cats always grinned. In fact, I didn't know that the cats could grin. They all can, said Duchess, and most of them do. I don't know of any that do, Alice said very politely, feeling quite pleased to have got into conversation. You don't know much, said the Duchess, and that's a fact. Alice did not at all like the tone of this remark, and thought it would be as well to introduce some other subject of conversation while she was trying to fix on one. The cook took the cauldron of a soup off the fire and at once set to work throwing everything within reach at the Duchess and the baby. The fire irons came first, then followed several of the saucepans, plates, and dishes. The Duchess took much already that it was quite impossible to say whether the blouse hurt it or not. "Oh, please mind what you're doing," cried Alice, jumping up and down in agony of terror. "Oh, there goes its precious nose," as an unusual large saucepan flew close by it and very nearly carried it off. "If everybody minded their own business," the Duchess said in a hoarse growl, "the world would go round a deal faster than it does." "Which would not be an advance," said Alice, who felt very glad to get a partner of sewing off